Hi, everyone, and welcome into my podcast. I am Coach Sherry, and this is Real Talk with Coach Sherry. If you're a woman over the age of 50, or if you're in a relationship with a woman over 50, or even if you just know a woman who is over 50, then you need to hear this. And today's podcast is going to be around the topic and my personal experience of why I didn't get a hysterectomy. So let's talk about it. I'm using this YouTube live and I am trying to figure it out because I typically go live on Restream. But I wanted to talk about this with you. And even if you're not a woman, hopefully, if you're in a relationship, you have real conversations with your partner and you are just as actively involved with their health and well being as you are with your own. So that when these decisions are coming up, these challenges arise, that you can, have a strong dialogue about it and help them through the decision making process. I find that, being married for 29 years, that has always been very helpful for me. I remember when we first got married, that's when my husband started to come with me to the doctors, to the gynecologist, just so that he could understand the changes that were or were not happening with my body and just being highly aware and just having an active role in that. I feel like our health is our health, but when you have a partner, sometimes it can also be their health too. If it's impacting you, it's going to impact them ultimately. And sometimes, you might hear something from your medical provider that may not sit well with you. I know some things that I've heard in the beginning, I'm like, wait, what? And you don't hear the whole message because you're still stuck on the diagnosis. And so, if you have a partner, even if it's your child who's of age, a grown up, or dear friend, a parent, whatever the case may be, they can hear the rest of it for you. And so then they can let you know the full story of what they heard. Because sometimes you hear something and you immediately go to the doom and gloom of it when the doctor initially tells you, but then you're like, okay, it's not that bad because your partner that was there with you heard the rest. So I wanted to talk about this fibroid thing, this cyst thing, that's going on. Women of a certain age, we are, vintage, we are seasoned, and so many things go on in our lives. I was just looking at a video from Good Morning America, and Shanice, the singer from I Love Your Smile, was saying that there was a while when she was not loving her smile. She was really feeling some kind of way because she actually recently, not too long ago, had a double mastectomy. And it just really had me thinking about all the changes that women sometimes go through, the things that we have to get taken away from us, not just, external things, but internally as well. And I was very fortunate to have three natural childbirths, no cesarean, so I didn't go through any major surgeries or anything like that. But, I was just like, wow, when I got this diagnosis, it just kind of threw me off. And so, because when you go through natural childbirth, it's not as invasive. It is still being very close to death for sure, you know, um, but it's nothing, you're not being cut. You don't have anything surgical really happening in that way. You don't, unless you tear, you don't have stitches. The recovery typically is a lot smoother. And so, up to this point, I hadn't had any major quote unquote surgery. And during COVID, I started experiencing challenging menstrual cycles and, really, really challenging. And it was, unbelievable because it was like, why now? We were all in lockdown, shut down and everything. And so it was very challenging. But I was glad that I was home too at the same time. And when things started, it wasn't really starting to open up per se, but it was in the early part of 2021. And I just remember going to my OBGYN, and, you know, she first tested me to see if I was going through menopause, because I guess sometimes when you go through menopause, your body just starts to do different things. And she did the test. I'm not even premenopausal still to this day. But I wasn't going through that. She did an exam and found a cyst on one of my ovaries, and I had some pretty big fibroids in my uterus. And she told me that I would be a candidate for a full hysterectomy. That was her recommendation. And I was like, what? A full hysterectomy, you know? And I knew how invasive that was. I knew how, the recovery, what that would entail. Now, at that time, I was about 51 years old. And I remember as a child, I was in third grade, 8 years old, and my mother had a hysterectomy. She was 38 years old. And it was interesting because she was in the hospital at the same time that my best friend in third grade, her mother was in the hospital too. Her mother had had a miscarriage, a late term miscarriage. And her mother and my mother were sharing rooms. And so here we are, one woman that was unable to have any more children because she had this hysterectomy, and another who had suffered a terrible miscarriage, and really wanted this other child. So it was interesting. They really formed a strong bond relationship because they both were in the hospital for quite a few days. And I remember that vividly because it was around the holidays, and I remember my mother was still recovering from her hysterectomy during Christmas. And one of my aunts who didn't have children, she came and took care of our family for Christmas that year. She was married to my father's brother, and they didn't have children, and we always looked at them as that cool aunt and uncle. And she did her best for sure, but it was just interesting how my mother really wasn't as mobile as she always had been prior to that. So in my mind, even fast forwarding to now, I'm 51 at the time, and I'm remembering that process. And then doing research and seeing how invasive having a hysterectomy is, and the recovery, how you have to stay in the hospital prior to the procedure and stay after the procedure, and just a lot going on with it. So when I, spoke about it with my husband, he was like, at that time, the vaccine for COVID had not been dispersed to many people. And he said, I really would feel more comfortable if the vaccine was more available, and that you staying in a hospital during this time, because again, this was the like January, February of 2021. And he was like, you staying in the hospital and doing all this, I don't know, I don't feel really comfortable. And at the time, I felt like that was a very selfish decision, or recommendation rather, because I was like, what I'm going through every month, why would you not want me to have immediate relief? I'm not understanding. I feel like he was just like, just wait a few months, and then we'll see. And so as I was still angry, with that decision, I decided to go with that decision as well. Just being, I guess, a good wife, I would say. But um, in the meantime, I still was trying to figure out what else I could do. And so I remember and I did a live, I had an interview with this doctor. She is a chiropractor, but she practices Eastern medicine and does body scans. And I remember one of my daughters had something terrible was going on with her skin. And we went to the dermatologist. This was her senior year of high school, and it was right before COVID hit. It was that fall semester of 2019, and something terrible was just happening to her skin. I listen, I didn't even take pictures of it because I was like, once this is healed, I don't even want to see this. It was unbelievable. And all dermatologists were doing were giving her steroids for it, which really was not helping it. It wasn't getting to the root of it. And I kept saying, please, what do you think it is? Could it be a particular type of allergies? Do you think it's stress? You know, she's a senior in high school and she's trying to figure out what her next move is going to be. And they were just like, no, no, this should handle it. And it didn't. And it really, if anything, it made it worse. And so I have a dear, dear friend, and her sister, like I said, is a chiropractor. And she said, you know, you might want to take her to see Renee. She does these body scans that she can see, you know, what's the root of the problem. So when I took my daughter to her and she did this whole exam, I think it's like 38 different points on her body. She did the scan, and it's a very it's a very spiritual kind of process. And she even tests the vitamins, the vitamin C's, the turmeric, the those types of vitamins on my daughter, coming to find that many of those she was allergic to as well. That was, you know, challenging for her skin. Things that you think are so good for you may not be. So everything is not for everyone. And I learned that through this process. And so, long story short, she was able to prescribe my daughter some vitamins and her skin got healed. It was amazing. So, fast forward to, you know, February, March now of 2021, and I'm looking for alternatives. I'm thinking I have to do something until everything is kind of cleared up and I feel more comfortable going into a hospital situation. And I immediately thought of Dr. Renee because I know what she did for my daughter. So I went to her, and I also brought all the vitamins that I was currently taking. Some of them, you know, because of the body scan, found that they weren't really doing anything for me. And so that's another thing. Maybe the vitamins you take may not be impacting you negatively, but at the same time, they may not be doing anything for you either. So you want to be very intentional when you take your vitamins and make sure that they are the right type of vitamin for you. So when she did the body scan, she was, you know, found out about my estrogen levels and some other things in, you know, within me, and she was able to prescribe vitamins that would rectify the things that were going on with me. You know, it was going to correct those things. And it was interesting because also with the body scan, she was able to tell me how many times a day to take the particular vitamins and how many during that day. So maybe one for breakfast time, one, you know, one in the morning, two in the afternoon, none at night. But then it might be one I had to take, three in the evening, and that's it. So she was able to really give me a customized solution and vitamin regimen for me. And one of the vitamins, and I'm going to share it with you because this might be something that you might find valuable too, was wild yam. And wild yam has so many different healing properties. It's a vitamin that I take to this day as well as my daughters. And with wild yam, it's a vitamin, it's a herb, and it's one that, again, I still go to. It's something that many women in different countries they use. They you know, they use the herb in different ways. And here are 10 of the major benefits of wild yam. They relieve menstrual symptoms, anti spasmodic and anti-inflammatory. They help with menopause symptoms. They help with your sex hormones. So I'm thinking maybe because I still take wild yam, that's why I'm not exhibiting any menopause symptoms. I don't know. They also improve brain function, skin anti-aging, post-menopause osteoporosis, pain and inflammation from arthritis. They support digestive health. They regulate blood sugar, reduce cancer risk, and improve cholesterol levels. So, wild yam, even though it helped me so much with not having to get a hysterectomy, it definitely has other healing properties for other areas in your, you know, within your health. So again, that body scan it talked about, what my body was deficient in, and the recommendations was just really good, and I really adhered to that. Then I had a friend who had recently had a baby, and she was saying that after she gave birth, that she was having some challenges, and she tried a yoni. And if you're familiar with yoni, let me know. But let me see if I have any. Okay, I see Eastat is in the building. Thank you for stopping by. And again, even though this is, about women's health, if you have that special woman in your life, this might be something that you can talk to them about. I'm a proponent for being an advocate for your health care, for your medical care, your treatment. Anything that you have going on, definitely get second opinions, read up on it, find out, different alternatives that you may be able to use. So, uterine fibroids, and let me just tell you, because like I said, I had fibroids, and they are non-cancerous tumors that grow in or on the wall of the uterus or womb. So my friend that recently had a baby at that time was saying that she had had challenges with her uterus after giving birth, and she went and did a yoni steam. And if you are familiar with the yoni steam, let me know in the comment section. Even if you are looking at the replay of this podcast, let me know if you are familiar with the yoni steam. It's also known as the vaginal steam or the V steam, and it's used for menstrual issues, as well as birth care, infertility, skin. And I know it's great for skin too. Again, that's one of the regimens that we did for my daughter. There's different herbs for different things that are going on in your life, that once you realize, it's like a menu. Where I went, there was a menu of different issues that you may be having, and they had the herbs that they would use in your particular steam. And so it's an ancient method, and it's done in many countries at the end of the menstrual cycle. And the steaming it's a very interconnection type of experience. It really brings you full circle to who you are as a woman. It's a great time to speak, read, or write affirmations while you're doing the yoni steam. And the place that we go to, they actually have these journals in there, and you are each in your own little little room, and they have these journals, and the women that go to it, they're able to write in those journals. You can read other people what they have written, and some of the stories that these women are sharing in these journals are remarkable, about how they never thought that they would be able to have a child, and or they had so much excruciating pain, and because of this experience, and going through this regimen, it has healed that. They have now two children, or they are just feeling more in tune with their body, healthier, just a lot of different things that they write in this book. So again, you can either write in it too, or just read the stories. But it's definitely a moment for you to get connected again with yourself, and just really have those affirmations. Just have a time to relax and just enjoy the moment and experience all the different senses that you have, just becoming more connected with yourself. This also, during that time, I would do a detox foot bath. And so they have different, again, herbs that they can put in a foot bath, and it's a copper tub, and it was just amazing. Listen, I have gotten deep massages, every week for years. And if you have experienced getting, a truly deep massage, afterwards you just want to crawl in bed. You do have this like light energy, but it's a feeling of, I just want to lay down. And after getting the yoni steam as well as the foot detox, I felt like that. I felt like something just left my body. And it is an exhilarating feeling, but it's like a feeling you can't really describe. You don't want to have much conversation. afterwards you just want to really just kind of chill. It's a great moment to maybe have a cup of tea, sit in a nice room, comfy. We already have the robes from the situation. Listen to some really soft classical music or jazz. Just a very soothing opportunity. Some women do it as a kind of like a girls' night out, and they each have their own stall again. But afterwards, they can have whatever food they want as a buffet. They can have wine, or just whatever. But I know that there are some women that do it in that way. But again, there's different herbs that serve different purposes. It also helps with hormonal and pH balance and just relaxing. So I was doing that as well as the body scan at the same time. And so I started noticing a difference. I really did. But I didn't want to, put too much too much stock in it, because you just never know. You can feel one way, but if you still have that situation going on, you still may have to go through with that procedure. But in the meantime, again, I started doing research. I went on YouTube. I was looking up hysterectomies and alternatives. And I started reading about ablations. And ablation was not an option that my doctor had given me. And I was like, huh, it sounds like a less invasive procedure. And I wonder why she didn't recommend that. So 3 months went by. The vaccine had been out, and most people, a lot of people, not most, but a lot of people had started to get it. I know a lot of people in the medical field did as well. And we were still masked up. It was 2021. It was the spring of 2021. It was about May of 2021, and I went back to my gynecologist. I really was going to there to get my date of when I would be going through with the procedure for the hysterectomy. But at the same time, I was going to have that conversation with her about the ablation and if that was going to be an alternative for me. And so when I went and I got examined, she like examined me, and then she re-examined me, and then she read over her notes, and then she looked at me and she was like, "Sherry, what did you do?" And I said, "What do you mean? What did I do?" And she said, "Because you had a pretty good sized cyst on your left ovary, because they were going to take my ovaries and everything. And I just couldn't even imagine. I always feel like God gives us things in our bodies for a reason. Like, isn't the ovaries and the uterus holding something up? Like, how are you going to anchor things?" So at any rate, she was looking at me and she said, "You had a pretty good sized cyst on your left ovary, and I don't feel it at all." And I was like, "Oh no." And then she said, "And your fibroids, the last time you were here, they were extremely angry. They were big and just mad. And now I barely feel them. What have you been doing?" And I said, "Well, I went to a chiropractor and she did a body scan, and I started taking some natural vitamins, and I started doing the yoni steam." She said, "The yoni steam? What's that?" And I explained, and she was like, "Huh." She started writing down the things I was telling her. And she said, "Well, you know what? Western medicine doesn't always have it right. Sometimes Eastern medicine is still the best alternative." She said, "I wouldn't do a hysterectomy on you now. I think you are a better candidate for an ablation." And an ablation is when they go in and they basically clean out your uterus. I don't know, they scrape it or something. So I was really happy, that that was going to be my alternative. I mean, absolutely, I would have preferred it to be nothing, but I'd rather that than a hysterectomy. So I went, scheduled my appointment for the hospital and everything. I went to get the ablation. It was an in and out. I was a day patient. I went that morning, had the procedure, and by that afternoon, I was heading home. But I'm going to tell you, they did have to put me to sleep to do the ablation. And when I woke up, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's because they manipulated my uterus or what, but it felt like I was in labor. Oh my goodness. I was trying to push so bad. All I wanted to do was squat. I was like, I just need to squat. Like, oh my good. It really felt, if any of you have had natural childbirth and you know that urge to push, that feel, that's what that felt like. Oh my goodness. And they couldn't even, no one could believe it. I was in the recovery room, and you know, when you're in the recovery room, it's other people in there getting recovered. So here I am coming out of that sleeping stupor from when you were put under anesthesia, and as soon as I was able to wake up, it was like I probably screamed it because I know so many nurses came running. I was like, I gotta push. Oh my goodness, I have to push. It has to come out. What? I mean, they were like, what? What needs to come out? I said, the baby, something. I don't know. And they was like, wait. They was trying to, contain me. They was calling the doctor. Can we give her some more pain medicine? Because I was feeling everything. I guess I don't know. But eventually, thankfully, that feeling subsided, and I was able to go home, and I just went home. That it was a Friday. I remember I came home, I went to bed, I slept so much. I slept from that afternoon all the way till probably the next afternoon. And y'all, they said you may experience some spotting, maybe some bleeding or whatever because of the procedure. I had none of that. I woke up like nothing ever happened and have been on my way. Now, I know there are some women that have the ablation and they say that it put them in menopause. It didn't do that for me. Some people, their cycle never comes back. It did that for me for a little while, but I've come to realize that my uterus is very compassionate. So whenever my daughters are around and they are basically on the same schedule, for whatever reason, when they start talking, my uterus is very compassionate, and it also happens. And so I'm, still every 28 days, and it is what it is. But it's not as dramatic as it was before the ablation or before the yoni and the body scan. So I'm by no means am a doctor at all. I didn't go to medical school, nursing school, or anything like that. I'm all about business and education. However, I am an advocate for medicine and your medical treatment. I was my mother's primary caregiver for 2.5 years as she lived with ALS. I know respiratory therapy. I know how to do take care of a feeding tube, trachea, all of those things. And I know that has nothing to do with a hysterectomy, but it still taught me how to be a really strong advocate for what's right for you. So a lot of times they'll do things that are easiest for them. Maybe things that will make them the most money, maybe things that will get them the most perks, but you need to be treated in a customized way. So do your research, understand the alternatives, and talk them out with your family as well as with your doctor to see if they are viable options for you too. That is so important, especially today and especially as women. So many women I've talked to about my ablation, and they were like, and they've had a hysterectomy, and they said they never even heard of that as an alternative. It was straight up hysterectomy. And they are looking at me like, damn, I wish I would have known that before I had the hysterectomy. So, what I'm sharing with you is so that you will know that before you make that final decision. And it has to be a decision that makes sense. It has to be a decision that's going to make your quality of life better. It's going to have to be a decision that's really the best one for you. So, look at all your options. Don't just go for the biggest thing, the biggest change that you have to go through, because you may not really have to go through that. And for whatever reason, some doctors don't even use that as an option. I mean, my doctor, she mentioned it, but it was like, why didn't you say that before? As maybe as an option, possibly. So I'm hoping that someone needed to hear this. I don't know who or when. This is an evergreen topic because this is something that can listen. My mother had hers at 38 back in 1978. So this is definitely something that is continuous as long as we are women with different changes going on in our bodies after a certain age, especially, and talk it over again with your family. And I'm very grateful that I did have that conversation with my husband and listen to him and wait until, things kind of started to clear up a little bit with the C19. But I always listen. My OBGYNs have always been female doctors as well. This is just another side note because I never wanted a man to be my OBGYN. No disrespect if you are OBGYN male and you're in the building, welcome. But I used to always say, I don't want a man doctor knowing me like that and then go on a golf course talking about, I've seen such and such, my husband's name's wife in that way. That's so crazy. But that's how it is sometimes. And no, you won't, that they won't have that pleasure. So but I want to thank you for listening to this podcast. And if you are here listening live, let me know in the comment section if you found value in this. Also, if you are listening to the replay, let me know if this information has helped you and maybe opened your eyes to other opportunities and other, different things that you could possibly do instead of just going straight into a hysterectomy. Be sure to watch my other episodes. I have other podcasts. I do have a playlist of them on my channel here on YouTube. And again, thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, practice, practice every day. Practice so that when you get in, you will always win. It has been my pleasure. I am Coach Sherry.